Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 138. For this episode, you are going to hear a series of some of our favorite clips from our 2 intimacy series over the past couple of seasons. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. The following content is intended for a mature audience only. Please be advised that the podcast is meant for entertainment purposes. We do not endorse or promote products.
The Myelin and Melanin podcast discusses the life experiences of the hosts and their guests. Each guest that appears consents to sharing their personal story and experience.
If you have questions regarding your sexual health, please consult your medical team. Also, the Myelin and Melanin podcast is not a substitute for therapy.
We are not providing medical, psychological, or religious advice whatsoever. Should you become pregnant, it's not our fault. Welcome to Season 4 of the Myelin and Melanin podcast. I'm Dawn.
And I'm Dana. We are 2 Black women sharing our musings on life, MS, and everything in between.
You can find us on the web at myelinandmelanin.com, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at myelinmelanin. Also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
This is a clip from episode 101, which is Realm 5 of our 2nd intimacy series, this part, Intimacy and MS. And in this clip, you'll hear professional dominatrix Mistress Magenta share some of her experiences.
After I was diagnosed with MS, which was a few years ago, I felt super out of control, and it bled into my life in a lot of ways. And and it was one of those things where after that was the first time I went to a kink club, and it was the first time where I was like, I transitioned to doing a lot of things that I had been thinking about for a while that I hadn't done, and kink was one of them. I was living in the U.S. at the time. I currently live in Australia.
So you had not indulged in the world of kink prior to your diagnosis. This is all like
not really, like not in any way that was like the kink community. Like I said, like with partners, I had been like, hey, there's a belt. Maybe I should, whip you with it. But I didn't do like little dominant things. I mean, I think like the world of kink is so broad that you can explore it in your day-to-day lives, because so many people participate in kink in so many different ways. Like when I was in college, I had a boyfriend with a foot fetish. That wasn't me exploring kink. That was him feeling comfortable sharing with me one of the things that turned him on, in my opinion. But I never went to a club. I never engaged with the kink community until after my diagnosis. And that's when I decided to start becoming educated on it, because I think once you get involved a little bit more, I mean, I think anyone should be educated if you're tying anyone up or whipping them or doing whatever you're doing. And I started making friends within the community and kind of figuring out where my interests in the BDSM and kink community lie, and my interests are in domination, and dominating someone made me feel in control of everything that was around me that I couldn't control. And I think that's what felt so empowering. And I think it was probably on multiple levels, not just the MS, but, at the time I was working in a very male dominated industry where, I'm a very alpha female. And I was getting pushed down a lot, and, and on top of, not feeling super strong all the time, it was and it still is. I think it's a great way to feel super empowered, and that's what it does for me. It feeds my need to feel empowered in the world I'm living in.
Right.
You know, as we were preparing for this episode and speaking with you, it just seemed, at first it wasn't uncomfortable. It was odd for me because I'm not familiar with this world. I mean, of course I've read about it, I've heard and all these things, you know, but it's interesting. And I always had the interest, but now it's like, wow, this is really exciting. And I can say that because of being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Like you said, it takes away so many things from you, and control is like the number one. And so what is exciting about this is that, hey, I found something that I can control, and it's pleasing, and it's the pleasure in this, I guess, setting or scenario with a partner is exciting to me, because I gain my control back, you know, for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever, however long it is. I love that.
Absolutely. Well, exactly what you said, Dawn. It's, you know, somebody else taking pleasure in me being and exerting my control.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because so many times when you have a chronic illness or disability, you're kind of, and I guess I want to step back, and I don't want to talk as though this is a novelty, because that irritates me. And I'm not going to speak for you, Mistress Magenta, but I'm going to assume, as somebody who's in the field, like, it irritates me when people talk about the kink community, like, it very, like, kind of fluffy novelty terms. I don't know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I see a whip and I'm, you know, like,
well,
I mean, I don't know.
I think a lot of people don't understand, like, a lot of people have this idea of what the kink community is based on like Hollywood movies, like 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
And there's so many, the thing is, there's so many kinks, and like kinks you wouldn't even think about. Like, I was at a club 2 weekends ago, and there was this guy that got tied to a bed and had 4 girls just tickling him. And that was his kink. So it's not always, like, I think people always go first to like, oh, it's, you know, a woman in fully leather, whips and chains. Like,
Yeah.
that there's all different types of fetishes. There was another person who attends the club a lot, who just carries around shoes and wants to be stepped on.
Wow.
Which is also a very powerful feeling thing to step on. So, you know, it's one of those, but not everyone gets excited about doing that, like, you know, doing that and stuff like that. So there's like so many different kinks out there, and it's not just the whips and chains, and not even all dominatrixes will look the same. I mean, there are plenty of, the idea of like being in full latex or a full cat suit is a Hollywood ideal of a dominatrix. I know so many dominatrixes that their attire that they wear as a dominatrix, you wouldn't be able to distinguish it from them walking down the street, because it's really not about
the outfit.
It's about the control. I mean, if someone's fetish is latex or leather or something like that, you know, the outfit can make a difference. But you know, it's for a lot of people who want to be submissive or be dominant, it's about that control dynamic. It's more about the mental part of it. And so one of the dominatrixes that I had trained under, she was telling a story about this coffee shop she would go to every day, and she would grab a cup of coffee, and she realized that some days the guy would give her free coffee and some days he wouldn't, and she couldn't figure it out. And then one day she realized if she was wearing like a leather jacket or leather boots, all of a sudden she'd get a free cup of coffee, and realize that the barista must have some kind of maybe making the assumption that he might have some kind of fetish. And the way that she carries herself, she gives off this like very powerful woman type thing. So it was almost like an unsaid thing that you know, that was known.
Right.
That is so interesting.
It's funny that we're talking about attire, because I remember when I was teaching full time, and people, you know, if I would be out at like happy hour or something, this was before my MS became super, you know, noticeable, I guess. It was still invisible. people would say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I would say, "Oh, I'm a teacher." And then I would have like weird, creepy guys say things to me like, "Oh, I have a ruler," or "Can you dress up?" Or even guys that I dated in the past, like, "Oh, would you ever think about doing this or that?" And so that was their kink, and I just thought, "Oh God, that again, that's associating the typical Hollywood ideal of what this is, supposed to look like." And
but
it's unfortunate.
But it is also a strong connection too, because a lot of these kinks and stuff come about in childhood. So a lot of people, men and women, when they're first feeling their first feelings, a lot of times it's for a teacher. So those connections are so strong that again, that's why it's a pretty common one, I think, because it's also one that people feel most comfortable about expressing, because it's not like a taboo one.
Right.
And so I think you get that most commonly because society has made it say that that's an okay kink to express.
Right. Yes.
But I think a lot of people probably have, and a lot of people who have the schoolgirl thing also have the kind of domination. I mean, obviously some of them just want a dominant woman, but they're allowed to express it by saying they want to do the teacher fantasy.
Right.
But really, like, they don't really care about the teacher part of it. They just want having a dominating woman.
Yes.
Well, speaking of education, you said the word, you used that word earlier, and then now that we're talking about teaching in school, would you mind sharing a little vocabulary just to kind of get people to understand, like, what is a dom or a sub? And, like, what are some things that people who aren't in this world, what do they need to know, I guess? What do you think they would want to know?
Useful vocabulary.
Yeah.
So I guess, I mean, like I was just saying about the dominant, a dominant person is just an authoritarian. They're the one that's in control of either the relationship or the scene. And a scene is like, sorry, I take for granted that people sometimes don't know that. I'm like, oh yeah, scene, blah, blah. Like, people are like, are you doing a play?
Right.
But no, it's, if you're with a friend or partner and you're like, tonight, let's tie you up and do this or do that. Here are the safe words, that's negotiating before the scene. So everyone knows what's going to happen. Everyone knows what people's boundaries are and what boundaries shouldn't be crossed.
Right.
And so there's so much communication in BDSM. And so in a scene, it's like, this is what we're doing for this hour or half hour or whatever. And then it's over, and then the scene's over, and then we go back to our normal lives or whatever.
Right.
But there are some people who are lifestyle dominants and lifestyle submissives. And those people have a relationship where one person is a dominant and one person submissive, and that is how they live their lives. And I think that's very common, I think, and was.
The clip you're about to listen to is from episode 95, and this clip features Kiana Renee.
Yeah. I mean, I love everything that you just said, because these two quotes from the article it just touches on everything that you just said. So I'm going to read the first one and then read the next one, but we can talk about it. But it says, access intimacy is not just the action or access or helping someone, or of, I don't know if they meant of. We have all experienced access that has left us feeling like a burden, violated, or just plain shitty. Many of us have experienced obligatory access where there is no intimacy, just a stoic counting down of the seconds until it is over.
Listen.
Yes. Yeah. All that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that is not intimacy.
No.
It's not
at all.
And it's like, almost like, as, reading that, it's sort of like I could feel like the dead energy emanating from that. Because I think, we can talk about that as it relates to, sexual relationships, a medical provider relationship, that kind of like, okay, when is this over? Whatever. I've got another patient in 5 minutes. So let's wrap this up.
But I love how the PA ends these sessions or appointments with, what can I do? Because it shows that I'm heard, that I'm cared for. And if you are in a more private, I'll say that again, a more private sexual moment, that is what you want from your partner.
Right.
That is exactly what you want, or partners, whatever floats your boat.
Right.
But you want to know that this person is asking, what are your needs? What can I do? Because it is a give and take situation.
Yeah, they're actually opening themselves up to hear you and to really feel you and to really see you. And that is sexy ass shit.
Yeah.
People don't understand. And if we're talking about, in our personal lives with our doctors and things like that, that's so empowering. Like we always talk about how to advocate for yourself. Like that's a way for physicians to give people agency and give them a space if they've never had it before to advocate for themselves. It's so powerful.
That's oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you. And you know what? Like if we're just even like talking about both in a doctor's appointment or like in a sexual encounter, my needs are going to be different every time. This is not the same shit every time. So when I go to this appointment with my doctor, this appointment, maybe like my bladder is being weird and we're going to need to talk about that. I'm going to need something for that. Okay, that's that. And then if I'm with my partner, today maybe, I don't know, without getting all, this is what I want to do today. Okay. Same thing with the doctor. Next time, maybe my spasticity has been extra. My next sexual encounter, I want you to tie me up. You know what I'm saying? Like it's different each time, and you have to add. And I shouldn't have to explain to you that we need to have this conversation every time.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be like a conversation. Okay, what do you want to do today? No, it's just one of those like things that should just naturally occur.
Yep.
Right. Even if it's just simply, like you said, like asking, like, what is it that you need? Is there anything that I need to know? That's another way to ask, is there anything you would like me to know?
Yes.
Like, or where are you today?
Yes.
And then you just let people speak. Like it's not hard, but I think for some people it's a little challenging because they've never had to do it before, and then also because they've never had it done for them or with them, so they just really don't understand. But if you don't start there, ask somebody, what do you need? How can I support you? Where are you? Like it's just whatever question that gives them space to share and gives themselves agency and the space to.
The following is a clip from episode 72, which was actually a party line from our first intimacy series, That Part, Intimacy NMS. And this clip features Beth from Bethy Bright and Dark, Ardra Shepard, Miss Tripping on Air, Damian Washington, and Carlos Kareem Wyndham.
I have to make funny about it because otherwise it gets overwhelming. And as you guys know, who are much more experienced with this than I had just like gotten to a point in my life where I had this fantastic life. Like I built a life for myself that was centered around my desire very deliberately to live independently as a single woman. I've been single for a really long time. We'll like segue into the whole sex thing, but like I've been single for a very long time by design. And it just dawned on me when I was thinking about coming on tonight with you guys, how pissed off I am at MS for ruining that for me. Because damn, I had a good thing going there. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, curveball. Yeah, it's not so easy to, be the lady that has, a man in every port, and the phone calls from the friends of relationships that I've built over the years. And that might sound scandalous, but it was sort of like, that's how I lived, like I was happily single.
Yes.
And then I'm like, okay, last time I got one of those text messages, like, hey, how you doing? And my answer is, I have a chronic disease and I can't walk.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a boner killer, Beth.
Right.
Right.
Well,
Right. So yeah. So
you
yeah,
are
that's me.
You're definitely in the right place or in good
Yes.
company being an oversharer, because I think that we all
Yes.
are at this point, and
Yes.
I guess it's cathartic to overshare right now.
Yeah.
This is gonna be the 3-hour podcast.
I was just thinking that I talked for way too long, and now I'm not going to say anything for a really
no,
long time.
not at all.
No. Thank you for sharing your story.
I made a funny joke. That is all. Please, Dom was speaking. Continue, please.
No, that's all. No, I was just saying how therapeutic, cathartic it can be to
Yes.
overshare, and I will allow someone else to take it from here.
Y'all, we the only ones who understand, y'all. We the only
true.
ones.
Yeah.
The symptoms aren't the same.
Nope.
We are not the same. But no matter what, you get in the ring with the same thing.
Yep.
Period.
It's almost like an instant intimacy, which I found with a couple. Like, I don't know. It's probably, I always think of you, Audra, because you were the first person that I really connected with. And I always thought to myself, this woman is going to think I'm a complete psycho, because I feel like we're friends. Like, I feel like, and I felt that way from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
well, I'm
I was so
glad,
grateful
'cause
for
I feel
it.
like we're friends too. So
Yeah, but I was
Yeah,
like, I'm like, I found this person on the internet that knows stuff, and it just was instant.
Yeah.
So I feel like you're
Yeah.
right. It's just a really cool connection, and out of a really shitty thing.
Yes.
Out of a really shitty thing, in a lot of ways, you're turning the poop into flowers.
I guess so.
And what, no matter who makes what, this podcast, Ardra's vlog, Carlos's Smoke and Mirrors, my jam, you make your thing and you put it down. Whoever picks it up, that's on them, and how they pick it up and in what ways and how deep it is, and that's on them. And you're here for it because you put it down in the first place. So for someone to have feeling some type of way, like, oh, she's gonna think I'm this because I like her that much. She's like, no, I'm glad you like me that much because this shit sucks. And I drove myself to be my most crystal clear about it in this way over and over and over and over again for years. And so you found some of my archive jams and that bumped with you. Respect, cool. There's no way I can find that weird or abhorrent or freaky or anything. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I can't. You know what I'm saying? That's it. So,
it is like a weird
it
phenomenon.
can be weird and freaky too, though. It can be weird and freaky and delicious. It can be all of those things. Okay. You know what I'm saying? It can be welcome and weird and freaky. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
You was 100% right, Daddy. On
do you know?
I can't argue.
Do you know?
I love
and
it.
to extend one more bridge of extending friendship.
That's right.
While I am happy to be introduced newly to the group of folks who are meeting your work, I identify as they them, and I am gender fluid. So very rarely do I identify as a boy, but I am very well aware that the world does perceive me as such more often than not. So that only offers more complication to the turducken that is trying to have sexual relations as an MS disabled person. Do you know what I mean? So extending more of that oversharing for the world. There it is.
Love
Guys,
it.
I posted today something that I'd written about sex and MS on my blog. And I just want to read a comment that somebody wrote in about it.
Is it a nice one?
I think it's like I think it's a conversation starter. So this comes from Clinton, who says, "I'm a dude with MS. I didn't realize that the blurred double vision and dizziness right after orgasm was an MS thing. I think he's probably having some heat sensitivity." And then he says, I had kind of given up on sex and relationships. I hate having to have that discussion with someone that I'm totally into and that is into me as well. telling them I have MS. I hate seeing the pity come into their eyes, followed by the looking for an exit strategy. It almost feels like MS is an STD to most people. Feels like I don't have anything to offer anyone besides dealing with an uncertain and terrifying future.
Wow.
Okay, girl. You know what? May I, if I may?
Tackle it. Let's hear it.
Yes.
What's our friend's name?
Clinton.
I don't want to be upset. Okay, Clinton. Hold on. Let me get my hackles back down for a second. Clinton. Honey. It's hard, right? It is difficult being a person who is forced to be vulnerable by nature, right? In particular, if you are adherent to this gender binary in which you ascribe yourself as beginning by saying, I'm a dude. When you say that is not only saying that I'm a male, you're saying you're a very particular kind of male. And then you talk about that, and honestly, what is perceived as strength by those who ascribe to that particular level of maleness is the sort of strength that means that you cannot express vulnerability, right? And what we're learning in this new age of Aquarius, presented and brought to you by COVID-19,
right,
is that if nothing else, you need vulnerability if you're going to make it in the world, right? And that includes in your sexuality. And certainly if you're going to be able to express any sort of sexuality that's going to be able to bring you mutual pleasure with you and whoever your multiple partners or single partner happen to be. So all of that framework that was brought into it, absolutely it's going to make it more difficult because you're forcing yourself into these places of being reserved that are being ascribed to you again by this false binary that doesn't exist. Gender doesn't really exist anymore, and we're not really doing that anymore. And if you're doing it to yourself, it's going to put you in a position where you're not able to be as vulnerable as you ought to be for your own comfort and your own strength in terms of your relationships with your partners, future or present, I would think.
Do you think? Go ahead.
I was gonna jump in to say, obviously I identify as female, but I reacted to that statement very, it almost hit a little close to home for me, not from the sort of macho maleness of it, but from the perspective of I don't date. I don't even think about it because it is so beyond me as a person, not as a female person, even just as a person, as how I could pull that kind of relationship into the mess that is everything, and this might be unique to me because, I'm a 5-year-old here, I'm just 5 years into this. I can't even get my head around how I would have a relationship. And I'll go even further. I, as I said, built a life for myself that was kind of based on, I'm just going to say it, I had a lot of casual sex.
Mm-hmm.
It was, safe, and it was respectful and responsible and all those things. But, I was single by choice and with intention. And I don't know how to do that anymore with all of this happening. And it's really, I went from thinking of myself as what I would call a very sexual person and a very independent and sort of free person to somebody that, I can't even get my head around it yet. And then, I'm almost embarrassed to say that, but it's the God's honest truth. Like, no. I can't, I don't believe that I would make a good partner sexually right now. So I avoid it. And I guess that's I don't know. Like I add it to the list of things. I felt like the list of possibilities that sort of I felt like changed for me overnight. I mean, it's not bad enough that I'm a 53-year-old single woman who, you know, lives in a world where youth is extolled and celebrated, and, you know, you have to deal with all that crap of, you know, am I still attractive? Am I still this? Am I still that? But on top of it, I have this fucked up, disease.
Yeah.
That, like, how do I even explain that to somebody?
The clip you are about to listen to is from episode 100 and was featured in our second intimacy series, This Part, Intimacy NMS, and it features our favorite guest co-host, Carlos Kareem Wyndham.
And finding an intimacy isn't about another person. This is kind of what I took from what you were saying. It's about you. It's about you, like, owning your shit.
Yeah. And just, you know, going back to the conversations that we had a couple weeks ago, Dawn, with Emily, like, you deserve pleasure. That you deserve that. It doesn't have anything to do with somebody else, unless your pleasure is pleasuring someone else, but you deserve that. And I think that we have to own that.
Yeah, I heard that, and that was one of the many broadcasts in the series that for me spoke to what is important about what you're bringing to the table right now, right? Because in that, what I also took from it, and she didn't say it explicitly, but it rang to me, is that needs to translate then also to your work. Does your work actually give you pleasure? Because if it does, then it is not work as such, right? It is actually the thing that is creating for you, that is feeding you, right? And if you can be fed from the work that you are doing, right? Or find a way to be at a job, for want of a better word, in a white supremacist capitalist system, or create a job for yourself in which you are fed in your soul, right? Then the work itself can also be very, 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 very intimate, right?
Yeah.
And because it gives you pleasure, because it does feed you, because it does nourish you. And you can tell when somebody loves what they're doing. You can tell when they love their work.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's whose food you want to eat. That's whose clothes you want to wear. That's whose podcast you want to listen to. That's whose comedy you want to hear. And that's who you want to fuck.
That's whose WAP you want.
Listen.
Thanks for tuning in to the Myelin and Melanin podcast.
You can find us on the web at myelinandmelanin.com, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at myelinmelanin.
Don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.